Hello, my name is Thomas and we are here on the Sólheimajökull Glacier in Iceland, the southernmost glacier.
So, the glacier we're on, how is it formed and when was it formed?
The ice I'm standing on here is probably about 400 to 600 years old. So it started as snow upon the main ice cap over there, and we have a lot of snow there every winter. The snow there, some of it melts down during the summer, but some of it accumulates and then it converts to ice. So we have layers of ice building up there on the top, and then the weight basically pushing down, it pushes the ice down to lower levels.
So how deep is the ice we're on at the moment?
It's about, the average thickness of the ice is about 200 meters.
And how fast is it disappearing?
It's disappearing very fast. For the past 15 years it has retreated about 1 kilometer. So it's about 60 meters a year, the average or so.
So is that from the front of it or off the top?
Yeah, it's from the front of it. If you look down the valley there, we can see some buildings down there. It was there only about 15 years ago, so since then it has been melting very fast.
Okay. And in the middle of the ice cap there's a volcano?
Yes, we have one of the biggest volcanoes in Iceland located underneath the main ice cap, the Mýrdalsjökull. The name of the volcano is Katla. Katla is or has been the third most active volcano in Iceland. It usually erupts about every 60-70 years. But now we have been waiting for Katla for about 97 years.
So when that finally erupts, what's going to happen to the ice?
At least where the eruption is taking place inside the caldera, there will be a lot of ice melting there. And then we will have big floods coming out from underneath the glacier, but also there's a lot of volcanic dirt coming out from the caldera, so the glacier will be covered with dirt, so that might also speed up the melting there.
So the dirt we can see at the moment, is that from the eruption?
Yes,
is it 5-6 years ago?
Some of it is from the eruption in Eyjafjallajökull from 2010.
Okay, right, so I am stood on the glacier that Thomas has just been talking about, and it's just insane, it's amazing. You can really see though the impact that the glacier's had on the valley. So I've taken a few close-up shots and you can kind of, if I move the camera around, you can just see the impact that it's had on the valley around it, and it's absolutely incredible. And it's insane to think that the impact that we have on this, so us as human beings upping the temperature of the world, and this is the impact it's had, that this whole glacier is decreasing at about 8 centimetres a day. It's just mind-boggling really, just to think that in say 150 years they've estimated this whole bit that I'm on won't be here anymore. But what I am going to do is I'm going to pinch Dr. D, and he's going to tell you about the impact this has on the surrounding valley. So,
glaciers are incredibly powerful erosive agents, and you can see down in the valley there we've got this classic U-shaped profile. So fluvial erosion, rivers, they produce V-shaped valleys. Glaciers just carve out these big, wide, flat-bottomed valleys. What's interesting about glacial erosion is the sediment they produce. The result of all that erosion is called glacial till. It's very poorly sorted. You might be able to see on the edge of the glacier, the valley there, we've got some big boulders right down to sort of fine ash material. And glaciers produce this unsorted, rubbly diamix. It's called till. Another interesting thing about glacial erosion, you can see the lake in front of the glacier there. So we call that a proglacial lake, just means an in front of glacier lake. That particular example is about 45 metres deep, and that's much deeper than sea level. That valley there is basically at sea level, and glaciers are the only kind of phenomenon that will produce this below sea level erosion. That's called glacial overdeepening.
So the glacier is constantly moving, so it's moving down the valley, but the rate it's decreasing means it's not looking like it's moving.
Yes, glacier ice flows like a sort of a viscous solid or a plastic deformation, so it's moving really slowly. And this glacier continues to move down the valley because it's draining Mýrdalsjökull, the big ice cap up there. But unfortunately, due to climate change, this glacier is receding very quickly, as Thomas explained. So the rate of melt is faster than the rate of forward flow. So even though ice is moving within the glacier, overall it's a net retreat.
What about the cracks that we can see on the floor behind you? So what are they? How are they formed? So Thomas said something about the ice moving outwards as well as down.
That's correct. So this valley, it's quite narrow up at the top, and put my axe down before I stab myself. And it's getting broader as we go south towards the ocean. So what's happening, the ice that's quite narrow up there is flowing down through this pinch point, and then it's able to expand a little bit like that. And as it expands into the wider valley, you get these lateral cracks that we can see all around us running down parallel to the valley sides. And there as the ice gets wider and expands and forms these cracks. What the cracks then do is act as collection points for meltwater on the surface of the glacier, and that's really a positive feedback loop, because the presence of liquid water will increase the rate of melt in those cracks.
Okay. And I can't remember what you called the big holes. What were the big holes that form?
Oh, the big holes.
We haven't got any around, but I'll find some.
Yeah, so when you might see a stream on the surface of the glacier, and it will just disappear into nowhere in a big hole, and that's called a moulin, which is a kind of glacial drainage. So these streams on the surface, they don't always flow to the snout. They will find a weakness in the ice, maybe due to a different crack lower down, and just plunge deep into the glacier. And if that liquid water gets to the glacier bed, which it does in various points, that acts as a sort of lubricant, and instead of the ice being frozen to its bed, it's then got liquid water, slippery, and the glacier can move much faster.
So it's essentially melting the ice from underneath, really?
Yeah, so there's three kinds of drainage within glaciers. You can have surface drainage, streams at the surface. You can have subglacial drainage, so that's liquid water at the bed. And also englacial drainage, that's where you have streams running in these cracks beneath our feet, but not at the bottom in contact with the bedrock.
Okay. I don't know if I've got any more questions. I think that's it. So thank you very much. So we were just talking about the water flowing down the glacier. So this is one example. So as you can see, there's already quite a big crack starting to form. So literally over a matter of weeks, that crack will just be absolutely ginormous. So if we go a bit more over here, so as you can see, this is obviously quite a big crack and quite a big water flow that's coming off the glacier. So we're getting into the summer. Well, I say summer, it's still freezing, but it's obviously a lot warmer than it is across the winter months. So they'll have hardly any snowfall at all now. So this water is just going to keep flowing and it won't freeze, which means that the ice underneath it is being melted away. So it will eventually just form this huge crevice, which will at some point possibly form a moulin that Adam's just been talking about. But it's just insane just to be able to see it. It's completely different to reading it on the internet or someone talking to you about it in school. It's absolutely incredible to actually witness this happening.
Hello, welcome to the glacier. We've been doing some sampling of the water. Now, first of all, what we did is use this to take the temperature of the water. This is an infrared thermometer, and what we measured was about 2.8 to 3.2 degrees Celsius, which is surprisingly warm considering we are in ice. We then used some nitrate sticks to try and see if there were any nitrates present. Works out that no, there didn't really seem to be any at all showing. We have used the flame meter, this conductor here. You have to put it in the water for for 60 seconds, and then you compare the value it gives you to a chart to work out the flow rate, which we found out to be about 0.9 metres per second, which is pretty high. Now the unusual thing that we discovered here was when we were using the universal indicator paper, we got a pH which seemed to be about 4.5, between 4 and 4.5. Now the thing that's unusual about that is you wouldn't expect this water to be particularly acidic, but then again it is volcanic runoff and glacier runoff, which means it might just have a lot of sulfur dioxide or different sulfates dissolved in it, which could be decreasing the acidity.
So in terms of limited nitrates in the water, what does that mean for biodiversity?
It means it's going to be very difficult for any plants to survive and live, because they need to have the nitrates to help them grow as part of the nitrogen cycle. And if you can't get the nitrates, then you've got a problem with growing in photosynthesis. Therefore, there's always a lack of biodiversity in areas such as this. The acidity also won't help.
So obviously we're on a glacier, we're not going to have any invertebrates. We've looked in the stream, did we see any?
No, couldn't see anything in there, but then again it's so free flowing, if there was anything further up it might just get washed all the way down quite quickly.
In terms of the temperature of the water, what does that mean for the bed of this stream? So if we have a look, it's quite bumpy, we've got quite a lot of ups and downs. What does the temperature of the water mean for that bed that's underneath the water?
It means it's going to melt fairly quickly considering the high temperature compared to the ice around it. And you can see the undulations where it's done that, and you've got the higher pressure as it's gone down. So
this is basically helping the glacier to disappear day by day?
Yeah, to an extent. And we heard earlier that it is receding by a significant amount every year. Do you remember how many metres that was?
Well, it was 8 centimetres a day. Was it 12 metres a year? Was that what he said?
More than that on average.
I think on average it's 50 to 70 metres per year.
Per year. Which is, it's just insane, isn't it, really?
In 30 years' time you won't be able to come here and do this.
And in 150 years, this whole glacier that we're stood on won't be here. Which is just insane. Right, so Sarah has just shown you some of the sampling we've done on a glacier. So obviously, if we had a bit more time, what we would quite like to do is maybe do a line transect down the glacier. So we'd mark it out every metre and we'd do exactly the same sampling every metre. But obviously, as you can see, it is quite treacherous at this time of year as well, with the water flowing under the ice, holes can appear. So we are a bit limited about where we can go. And also just the time that we have got up here, because we've already been on here for a good couple of hours now and it is quite cold. So we do need to be heading off here pretty soon. But what we are going to do further down is we are going to take another sample and we're going to compare it to the altitude and see whether that has an impact. And we will also sample the lake down the bottom just to see if the results are similar, whether maybe the acidity is different. Obviously flow rate is going to be different because it's more of a lake than a glacial runoff, but we'll see the impact that has. Okay, so we have made it off the glacier in one piece. I'd managed to not hit the deck, which I'm quite impressed with. So we are back at, so if I go on this way, we are back at the cabin where we started. So in about 1999, the glacier was here where I am. So if you can see in the background up there, I'll turn around properly in a second, that's where it is now. And if we look behind me, you can kind of see the two points. That's where it was about 100 years before that. So you can see how much it's actually shifted, which is insane. So that's where the glacier is now. 1999 and about 1890 all the way down there.